Welcome, everybody. Thanks for being here. Before we dive in, a couple of housekeeping items. We're going to be running about 30 minutes, 45 minutes today, with the last 10 minutes reserved for questions. So please drop your questions into the chat as they come up. Don't wait until the end. We're recording this session, so if you need to step away, you will get a reply link in your inbox tomorrow along with the slide deck. Now, why are we here? Today is built around one simple idea. Running a successful clinic should be creating more freedom for you, more flexibility, more time, more long-term wealth, not just a bigger workload and a fuller calendar. But what we hear from clinic owners every week is the opposite. They're booked solid, revenue is up, and somehow there's still less margin, less time, less clarity about where it's all going. So we've put together a two-part playbook for the next half an hour. I'll take first half, how to grow the right way in 2026, how to attract better fit patients, getting found in the new AI search layer, and converting that visibility into book consults. Then I'll hand the mic to Paavan Kotini, who's going to walk you through the wealth side, what you actually keep after the IRS gets their cut, why your business probably shouldn't be a retirement plan, and how to stop playing defense with your money. By the end, you'll have a concrete checklist, and we have a couple of offers for everyone on the webinar. Let's get into it. Quick intros, so you know who you're listening to. I'm Philip Kujawski, founder and president of WebToMed. I spent the last 25 plus years working exclusively with healthcare practices on digital growth. That is website strategy, search engine optimization, and now new generative search layer, the AI-powered stuff, patient acquisition, and the conversion side of the funnel. We've worked with hundreds of clinics across functional, regenerative, dermatology, fertility, plastics, pretty much every specialty. So everything I'm sharing today comes from patterns we see across that book of work. My co-host is Paavan Kotini, founder and CEO of Kotini Kotini. Paavan has just under 2 decades in financial services. He's two-time best-selling author, and he runs a virtual family office model, which basically means he gives clinic owners and entrepreneurs the same caliber of integrated tax, wealth, and legacy planning that the ultra-high net worth families have had for generations, but at a scale that actually makes sense for successful private practice. The reason we're presenting together is simple. The growth side and the wealth side are usually run as two separate conversations with two separate advisors, and that disconnect is where a lot of value quietly leaks out. Today, we're putting them on the same page. Here is the playbook for the first half an hour, or first half of the presentation. We'll start by naming the problem. Let's call it the 2026 dilemma. Because if we don't agree on what's actually going wrong, none of the tactics will land. Then I'll walk you through the 3 growth moves that matter most this year. Move 1 is right fit positioning, attracting better, higher value patients instead of just more of them. Move 2 is big one for 2026, winning the visibility in AI-powered search. Patients are not just Googling anymore. They're asking ChatGPT, they're asking Perplexity, they're reading Google's AI overviews, and there's a brand new discipline called GEO, Generative Engine Optimization, that determines whether your clinic gets recommended in those answers or not. Move 3 is converting that visibility into actual booked consults, because getting found is only half the job. Then I hand off to Paavan for the second half, taxes, wealth, and the keep side. We close with a 5-point checklist you can take to your team tomorrow. 2 concrete offers we've put together just for this webinar, and live Q&A at the end. Quick note before we move on, please drop your questions into the chat as we go. We would much rather answer them than have them go unasked. Now, before we go tactical, I want to spend a minute on this slide because everything else builds on it. Most clinic owners we work with are successful on paper and stuck in practice. no pun intended. Let me unpack the four things you see here. One, the schedule is full of wrong patients, high volume, low margin, heavy admin, the kind of work that pays the bills, but doesn't build the clinic you actually want to be known for. Two, marketing is reactive. It's, let's say, Facebook ad when booking it's a new website every 5 years. When someone complains it looks dated, there's no positioning, no system. Growth depends on word of mouth and luck. Three, tax planning is defensive. You find out what you owe in April. Your accountant tells you it's too late to do anything about it, and the cycle repeats. And then four, and this is the one that quietly hurts most, the business is the retirement plan. Now, I'll quote, I'll just sell the practice when I'm 60. I think a lot of doctors have said it. That's not a retirement plan. That is an exit hope. And it concentrates 100% of your risk inside the liquid asset that depends on you showing up every day. Now, look at the box on the right, the coordination gap. The clinics that are pulling ahead in 2026 are not necessarily the ones with the biggest marketing budgets or the best CPAs. They're the ones running offense on both sides at once, growth and wealth, designed together with two sides actually talking to each other. That coordinated approach is the entire thesis of this webinar, and it's the lens we're going to use for everything that follows. All right, move one. Attracting the patients you actually want. This is the highest leverage thing on the growth side, and most clinics get it backwards. They try to market to everyone in 30-mile radius, and they end up converting no one in particular. The fix is not louder ads, it's sharper positioning. 4 steps. 1, define the patient you're built for, not just the demographic, but the specific outcome you deliver. For example, working professionals over 40 dealing with chronic back pain who want to avoid surgery. That kind of specificity. 2, build a service page for every one of those outcomes and write it in your patient's language, not CPT codes. Patients don't search for arthroscopic procedures. They search for, how do I fix this thing in my knee? Meet them where they are. 3, price and package for value, not volume. Bundled programs, clear outcomes, premium experiences. The clinics that try to compete on price end up with the busiest calendar and the lowest margin. 4, make fit obvious in the first 10 seconds of the page. So a visitor to your website should know immediately whether they're in the right place. If they have to scroll and squint to figure that out, you already lost them. The reason this matters is in the box. A right fit, high value patient is worth 3 to 5 times the lifetime value of a generic volume driven booking. These high value visitors, they book faster, they pay more, they stay longer, and crucially, they refer other people who look like them. Get this one right, and the next 2 moves become significantly easier. The next one, move 2. And this is the slide I want you to take the most notes on, because this is what's actually new in 2026. The way patients find clinics is changing very fast. They're not just Googling anymore. They're asking ChatGPT, who's the best fertility specialist in Dallas? They're asking Perplexity, what should I do about my plantar fasciitis? They're reading Google's AI overviews. And that AI-generated answer that now sits above the regular search results, and a huge percentage of them are not clicking through the links at all, right? So they're getting their answers right inside the AI. We're seeing roughly 1 in 4 adults in the US start a healthcare question inside an AI chatbot. And I think that number is climbing very, very quickly. We see it up and up every quarter now. Now, getting cited inside those AI answers is a new discipline. It's called GEO, Generative Engine Optimization. And that's materially different from the traditional SEO or search engine optimization. Now, there are 4 areas to focus on. 1, Answer real patient questions clearly near the top of every page. AI rewards directness and clarity, not keyword stuffing. 2, make your services, your providers, and your locations machine readable. This is accomplished through structured data, clean labeling. There's got to be no ambiguity. The AI has to be able to parse you to cite you. So there is few things very technical in there that need to be done, but it's basically the machine reading your website. So you got to make it as good for that machine as you can. And then 3, strengthen the trust signals the AI is actually scanning for. So provider bios with real credentials, robust FAQs, current reviews, and strong local signals. And then 4, aim to be the answer, not just a link and the answer. If you used Google, you've probably seen that it provides the answers and sometimes the links. Well, you got to be authoritative there to show up. Clinics that do this well are getting recommended directly by AI to patients. So these people are basically the ones that will never scroll to page 2 of Google. And not many people did before, but this is even becoming more important these days. Clinics that ignore this for another year are going to wake up in 2027 wondering where their organic traffic went. Now, the next move, turning that visibility into booked consults. Here's the painful truth. Most clinic websites generate plenty of traffic and then leak almost all of it. Industry benchmarks suggest about 80% of qualified leads never book on the first contact. That's 80%. That's a huge number. And that's really not a marketing problem. That's a conversion problem. And it's almost entirely fixable. Again, there are 4 things here to make it work better. 1, clarity above the fold. What I mean by that, when you open your website, above the fold is basically before you start scrolling. So the first thing a visitor sees on your homepage and your service pages should answer 3 questions in plain language. Who do you help? What do you do? And what happens next? If a brand new visitor can answer those 3 questions in 5 seconds, you're losing them. Now, another thing, number 2, remove every ounce of friction. So 1 primary call to action per page, so there's no confusion. Fast mobile load times, and I mean fast, sub 3-second loads. If it loads too slowly, people are going to the next website. Now, another thing that I see quite often still, forms that are long, the intake forms where you ask them questions to fill out as a lead. Forms short enough to finish on a phone with 1 thumb while standing in a line at Starbucks are the key. More questions you ask, you're going to lose them. Every extra field is a percentage of leads that you don't get. Then 3, show real proof prominently, real outcomes, real patient stories with real names, real photos when you can get them, real provider bios with real credentials. I see that quite overlooked still. Trust is what converts a visitor into a consult. Generic stock photos and vague claims do the opposite. 4, automate the follow-up. Most people don't book the first time they hit your site. They get distracted, kids need lunch, the meeting starts, so on and so forth. So if you have a simple email or SMS nurture sequence that gently brings them back over the next 2 weeks, you will recover a meaningful chunk of those 80%. Now, your front desk cannot do this manually at scale. The system can. Close the gap between inquiry and scheduled, and you will move the needle on revenue without spending another dollar on traffic. Quick recap, because I want this to be your team's checklist for tomorrow. 5 moves. So 1, define your higher value patient and build everything around them. 3 to 5 times the lifetime value. That's a big win here. 2, win the new AI search layer. GEO is not optional in 2026. You gotta be in ChatGPT Perplexity AI overviews. Be findable inside the answer, not buried on page 2. 3, close the conversation conversion gap between visibility and book consult, clarity, friction, proof, follow-up. And 4, and this is Paavan's territory, shift your wealth strategy from reactive to proactive, defensive to offensive. And 5, and this is the big one for everything we're doing today, design growth and wealth together, not in silos. The clinics pulling ahead are the ones whose marketing strategy and tech strategy are actually in the same conversation. If you only remember 2 words from this whole webinar, let them be proactive and coordinated. That's the difference between a busy clinic that owns you and a clinic that you actually own. Take a screenshot of this slide, share it with your operations lead, and pick the one move you're going to start on this week. And I'll leave it up for a sec if somebody wants to capture it real quick. All right. And I want to make sure everyone on this call leaves with something concrete and actionable, not just notes. So we've put together 2 attendee only offers. These are just for people on this webinar. Number 1 on the left, complimentary, no obligation, 30-minute strategy session with our team at WebToMed. We'll do a quick audit of your current digital footprint, look at where you sit in AI search, identify the biggest growth opportunities specific to your specialty and your market. And you walk away with a written summary, whether or not you ever do anything else with us. Number 2, to the right, exclusive marketing package pricing for everyone on this webinar. These are the same proven solutions I just walked through, right? The right fit positioning for geo build out, conversion focused website rebuilds. And we're offering them at a discount you will not see anywhere else, just for the attendees. Both offers live at the same place, webtomed.com/growth. You can scan the QR code here on the page or on the screen with your phone, or just type in the URL, and we'll have a follow-up email with a link as well. Now, I'm going to keep this short because I want Paavan to have the floor. The whole point of growing revenue is to convert it into long-term wealth, freedom, optionality, time. But every new dollar of revenue is worth a lot less when 40 cents of it is leaking out to tax drag or missed deductions and disconnected financial decisions. You can grow a clinic from 2 million to 4 million in revenue and barely move what you actually keep. If KeepSite isn't running, then nothing is working. Paavan, over to you.
Thank you, Philip. I really appreciate that, and I love what you guys are doing at Web2MD. I think the point of growth and point of entrepreneurship is freedom, and so every lever that you can pull to really help you scale and grow is incredibly important. And I think at an age when there's so much change happening in the AI age, it's really important to make sure that your storefront is your website, right? And it's optimized. So very nice, well done. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Today we're going to talk about 5 different questions that are up here on the slide right now. Let me pull up my screen.
Let me see if lets you share. I think I have to stop mine. There you go.
Okay, perfect. You can see my screen?
I sure can. Looks great.
Perfect. Awesome. So, want to tell you a little bit about me first of all. So, Paavan Kotini, we have Kotini Kotini, and as a dedicated division, we have Doctor's Family Office. We're a non-traditional proactive planning family office. We focus on 6 primary areas. We do advanced tax planning, wealth management, risk management, legal services, business advisory, and if you're a medical professional, we call that practice enhancement, and lifestyle concierge. So we try to bring all of those siloed practices into one place, right? So it's a coordinated activity, and we like to be able to quarterback that. Today, I wanted to talk to you in the lens of a story that I wrote in my book, Tax Efficient White Coat. And I call it the $5 million gap, right? And it's a story about 2 physicians, doctors that had the same income, same career, but what made all the difference? right? Um, so I think just to get started, going back to where I was talking about what Kotini Kotini is focused on doing is we're trying to move individuals from disconnected professionals to a doctor's family office or a virtual family office. Because today, most high earning professionals like yourself are facing a silo problem. I mean, you have a great CPA, you have a great broker, a trusted attorney, but they barely talk to each other. And nothing against them, but what's the cost that you're experiencing when they're not talking to each other? So we try to connect the puzzle pieces together and we try to align your tax, investment, estate strategies to ensure that you aren't overpaying IRS or leaving wealth on the table. So with that, let's jump into the story. So there's two doctors, same medical school, same residency. They were having the same income of $350,000 in this example, and both are very extremely hardworking, both doing all the right things by conventional standards. But one retires with $3 million, which is good, right? But the other retires 30 years later with $8 million, right? And which is great. And it didn't come from, oh, this particular, that the one with the 8 million chose a better stock, right? Or he just had a lucky exit. It came from one thing, and that's intention. One was a filer, the doctor that filed, and then the other one was a planner. So today we're going to talk about that $5 million gap and what it takes, and why, Mr. Anderson, who thought he was doing everything right, was actually leaving money on the table. So one of the questions that Philip asked me to talk about is, what can you still do now that April 15th is over to impact your 2025 and your 2026 taxes, right? And so there's 5 moves that you can still do. There's actually a few more things, but 5 major moves. One is you can still do a backdoor Roth. You can do cost segregation studies. You can do cash balance plan, defined benefit plan, and you can do leveraged charitable and donor advised funds, 2 different things. But there's also a credit carryback, right? There's an opportunity for you to be able to go back retroactively. And in some cases, depending on the type of credit, you could go back without even having to amend your taxes. So it's just using a different form. And so there's a few things, a few of these strategies that, Dr. Mehta, in the first year alone started to use that generated, $19,000 of tax savings, right? Versus his counterpart, Mr. Anderson, Dr. Anderson. And it's a small number when you think about it like this, but 30 years, if you think about it, it's transformational. It's significant when you add it up year over year, right? So if you file and you start doing your planning typically after December 31st, which most CPAs do, then you're leaving money on the table. And let me just say that, there's over 80,000 pages of the IRS tax code, and a traditional CPA typically knows about 2%. Nothing against them. They're focused on compliance and filing, right? But if you think of the tax code in a different angle, Congress created the tax code essentially to incentivize people. So now if you look at it that way, there's 80,000 pages of incentives, but most people just don't know how to utilize it, right? And so we want to be able to utilize legal strategies that were created by Congress to reduce your taxes, right? So in this case, again, Dr. Anderson, he did the traditional things, 401k, HSA, and each year he gives his W-2s and returns to details to his CPA, and the CPA says, "Congratulations for your success," and gives him a big bill, right? And it feels painful. And if you feel like there's potentially things that you can do, and why is it that other multimillionaires and multi-billionaires are paying less in taxes? There are absolutely ways, there are absolutely strategies. And so it's important to explore tax planning. The second thing that Philip indicated too was also that your business should not be your retirement plan, right? You, as an entrepreneur, you wanted to be able to build a business so you could have freedom in time, most likely, and also money. But what's the scary part is if you're not in business, typically people have non-liquid assets about 50%, and then the other 50% is coming from investment options, right? Whereas if you're a business owner, we have historically seen that 80% of their money and their wealth is tied up with their business, right? And that's not a good thing because if you have a specialized practice, right, you're putting your retirement based on a successful exit and a specialized practice. We don't know at that time what the multiples are, right? And we need to understand that if you are truly looking to be able to exit. And moreover, every time that you have a successful year, it's really important to be able to build wealth outside of your business by taking some of those profits and investing it into yourself, right? And into your future retirement. So a practice is not a retirement plan. It's an asset only when somebody else wants to buy it. And the market is less predictable than most owners assume. And, a practice can be tied to your reputation, your referral network, your specific geography, and it needs to be legally protected and tax advantage structure, right? So it's very important if you are thinking about exit, how do you build value, your enterprise value in your organization today so that down the road you can have a successful exit, right? Or whether that's external or internal exit. The third question is the shift from being defensive to offensive tax planning. So defensive is very reactive planning, right? And offensive planning is proactive, right? And it's really important because we start talking about offensive proactive tax planning starting in January 1st of this year itself, right? And so throughout the year, we're developing the tax plan, right? When you wait till after December 31st of this year to start thinking about taxes, then you might have missed the boat. I've talked in a few pages ago, I talked about 5 different strategies that you could potentially utilize. However, if you do it in proactive space within the calendar year, there's probably over 80 plus strategies that you may be able to utilize, or even more, right? So very important to not look in the reverse, but to look ahead, right? So do you want to look in the rear view mirror, or do you want to look through the windshield and look ahead? And so in this case, Dr. Mehta's first move out of residency was finding a proactive tax planner and, asking him, what can we do now to reduce this year's and next year's taxes, right? And that changes the perspective because you're proactively working with your team to be able to do this. So it's all about intention. So there are a few different blind spots that quietly erode wealth for clinic owners, right? This is, just talking about a few. It's not talking about all of them, but if you have a partnership, you really need to make sure that you have a buy-sell agreement in place, right? And not having a buy-sell agreement for licensed professional services is very, very risky and leaves a lot of area of ambiguity, right? What happens after that person dies. And it doesn't need to be always about death. It could also be about disability as well, too. Now, sometimes there's a lot of commingling that happens with clinic owners that if they're a solo practitioner And when they first started off, there's personal guarantees that were never renegotiated. It's important to take that into consideration. A lot of the insurance that they have isn't actually hasn't actually been updated, and so whether it's a life or disability or malpractice, whatever it was, a lot of it was done during the residency, and it's not for when they're actually a practice owner. So being underinsured is not a good thing, because it's you have to plan for the best but prepare for the worst, and the worst may not have come yet for you, but it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? And so you have to be prepared for that. A lot of clinic owners also have the wrong entity structure. They started off with something just because that's what they were aware of and knew, but they haven't really updated the entity structure to match their income level, right? And so it's really important, and there's no one size fits all, and we have to look at your goals and objectives to really understand what is the right, most effective and efficient entity structure. And if you have real estate, sometimes it may be in the wrong name, right? And you want to make sure that you're limiting your risk associated with that as well too. And make sure that you're getting the most amount of tax advantages by having real estate. If you have many times, you may be doing some side income with consulting, speaking, and so on. And a lot of people, we find clinic owners, they're not optimizing all of those income flows. And so we want to make sure that it's not being overtaxed. And of course, not doing tax planning for your clinic. So if you think about maybe you're doing tax planning personally, but if you're not doing tax planning for your clinic as well, you're really leaving money on the table, right? And there may be opportunities that help you for bringing wealth outside of your business, and give you tax advantages as well too. And last but not least is not mitigating risks for the clinic, right? It's great to think about optimistically of all the great things that you can do and grow, but you also need to be mitigating risk along the way, right? And with growth comes risk mitigation. So like I said, plan for the best, but prepare for the worst, right? And Murphy's Law is like, if it can happen, it will happen, right? So with that, the last question I wanted to be able to address is, how can a coordinated strategy put every dollar to work? You worked very hard for your money, and it's important to make your money work for you, right? In this case, Dr. Mehta didn't win because he was smarter. It's not something that he had better stock picks or anything like that, as I was mentioning. He won because he built something that Dr. Anderson never had, which is a coordinated team with intention. So a CPA, a financial advisor, an attorney, an insurance strategist, who all communicated together as an integrated unit and not in silos, right? So it was architecture in action. So you started to see bonus depreciation, offset income, trust structures that protect depreciated savings, cash balance plan that compounds deferral dollars and gives tax advantages, investment grade life insurance that grows tax-free in the background, 1031 exchange to defer any capital gains, charitable LLCs that turn $50,000 of donation into $250,000 of deduction, right? And you can see that Dr. Anderson worked hard in his career, but Dr. Mehta worked hard on his financial structure, right? And so over time, that difference turned from compliance into compounding. So this is a real story that between two doctors. I've of course changed the names and is documented in my book, Tax Efficient White Coat. So the question is, going back to it, is there's two different mindsets. Which one are you, or better, which one do you want to become? So what are the next steps? So if you're curious about if you're leaving money on the table and you're looking for a doctor's family office that integrates tax strategy, wealth planning, legal structure, insurance, all under one coordinated roof, right? You need to talk to us, right? You can schedule your complimentary intro call. It's a no obligation call, but it identifies your biggest opportunities. Most people that may not even work with us, but say that it's the most educational experience that they go through. And if you do that, just for being here today and for you attending the intro call, we will send you a signed copy of my most recent book, Tax Efficient White Coat. So the book is our gift to your library, but our expertise is the gift to your legacy. So let's make the next chapter the most efficient, coordinated, and celebrated one yet. So if you want to start closing the gap and not have another surprise next year, it's about taking action today. So thank you very much. On average, you can see this is from 2024, but on average, clients save about $54,000 in taxes. We help clients in all 50 states. Our goal is to save and protect your most valuable asset, which is time. All right, so thank you very much, and we guess we can open the floor for any questions.
Thank you, Paavan. Very, very informative as always. Yep, we're at the part of the webinar I personally enjoy the most, your questions. Drop them into the chat now if you haven't already. I've got Paavan here with me, so we can field questions on either side of the growth side or the wealth side, and ideally we'll take few that bridge the two. That's where most interesting answers usually live. While questions come in, a quick word, what's on the screen. So the contact info you see is our direct contact. QR code on the left takes you to WebToMed strategy session. Same link as the previous slide. QR code on the right takes you to Paavan's contact scheduling link. And if we don't get to your questions live, please don't let it sit. Email us directly using the addresses on the screen or scan those QR codes and book the time with us. We really, read and spend time on reading every message and would much rather answer your specific questions than have you walk away guessing. We'll also be sending a replay of this. So if you want to rewatch any of the part, you'll have a link from us. And again, thank you for spending the last 40 minutes with us today. Go build a clinic you actually want to own, and let's keep more of what you make. And Paavan, anything to add before we open to chat?
I think, there's a lot of changes that are happening in the world today, and it's important, and I live by this philosophy that the only constant is change. So if you haven't already, make a change today. Whatever it was from this webinar, whether it's about growth or whether it's about keeping more of what you earn, it's important to make a change, and that all starts with intention. So looking forward to talking to each and every one of you. But have an awesome day, have an awesome evening, and good luck and success to growing your clinic.
Got a note here from somebody that chat is disabled. Please put it in the Q&A section. If you don't see that, there's a button for Q&A and you can drop it into that chat. One question, I think this is for you, Paavan. I opened my practice last year. At what point should I start tax planning?
So the initial year is very important. We help clients all the way from starting a clinic, growing a clinic, to exiting a clinic. So it's worth having a consult because a lot of the things that we can do is help you get it started right from the beginning, rather than having to go through years of doing it wrong and then retroactively trying to recover some of it. So if you've started a clinic last year, I think congratulations, first of all, but it's very important that you start developing the foundation of all of your financial areas together. So yeah, you can start today in starting to do advanced tax planning.
I agree. There is, I guess, no better time than now because, and I think same goes for marketing. This is where you can really grow starting now, even for small practices. We work with a lot of startup practices, providers that transitioned maybe from ER going into a private practice, a lot of them part-time. The marketing part of it really helps you grow and then transition fully into a private practice. If you're a new practice that, let's say, transitions from work in ER or, another place. Another question here. Well, thoughts on email? I guess that's for me. Mm, I think email marketing is great if done correctly. Everybody gets a lot of spam. Um, but I think for practices, one thing that's important to keep in mind, if I get an email from my doctor, I'm going to open it, right? So communicating to existing patients is key. I don't recommend buying lists. That doesn't work, hasn't worked for a very, very long time. Building those lists organically, I think, is the way to go. And I still see a lot of practices that do not collect emails, which is a little bit crazy because I think that's marketing gold, being able to get to your patients and get them back to your practice or even introduce them to new things you may be doing, right? So let's say you launch the shockwave therapy service, you want your existing patients to know about it. No better way than email because that's going to get directly to them. Yeah, you can post it on your Facebook, you can put it on your Meta, but nobody's really seeing it, right? We're scrolling through things and that's just a blip. Email, I think, has a little bit better longevity. All right, well, that takes us to the end of the presentation. We used up the
Philip,
full 45 minutes. If there are any other questions, please contact us directly with the information on the screen. Paavan, again, thank you for doing this very informative session and wishing everybody a wonderful evening.
Philip, there was one more question targeted towards you. What does WebMD do in terms of marketing and website management?
Oh, very good question. Well, we offer the full gamut of digital marketing. The strategies that I discussed today, I think those are the top tier things that are available. But from creating websites to search engine optimization to email marketing, Meta ads, Google ads, we do it all. I don't think there is one size fits all. To paint that as a picture, for example, if you're a stem cell clinic, it may be very hard to run Google ads, but there may be other ways to get to those patients. I think we always have to think and figure out the strategies, but first think about the things I said, right? Who's that ideal patient for you? Because just creating a website or just doing SEO, I think anyone can do that today, but I don't think many people can do that well because they don't spend the time to think through what's actually going to matter for that practice. Again, having your calendar fully booked is great, but if those are not the right patients, you're probably losing a lot of opportunities. Everything has an opportunity cost, right? So, well, thank you for the question. And let me see, maybe some other questions came in, but I think we're good. I don't see any more. Well, again, thanks everybody. Have a wonderful evening. Paavan, thank you again. And hopefully we can answer some more questions directly by contacting us.